Hello, my name's Vic Slouthian. I'm the parliamentary candidate for the Green Party for the Isle of Wight. I've lived on the Isle of Wight now for 10 years in various locations, and my job is a lecturer for geography, history and geology at the college in the centre of Newport for sixth form students. I'm standing for the Green Party because there's been a huge surge in membership of the Green Party. Nationally, we've had 60,000 members at the moment, which puts us in the top 3 or 4 parties in the whole of the UK. On the Isle of Wight, in the last less than a year, we've gone from 50 people who are members of the party to 280 members and supporters on the island. So there's a huge green surge happening on the Isle of Wight. And I'm going to explain to you why. There's a number of different policy areas that we're concentrating on for the Isle of Wight, and the first one I really want to talk about is the economy. At the moment we have one of the most unequal societies in the UK for 3 or 4 decades, and this is affecting our economy. We have huge areas of deprivation and poverty, even on the Isle of Wight, in Ventnor and areas of Cowes, and we need to re-establish and make it a much more balanced equality, because that is what is harming our economy. On the Isle of Wight, we're looking at investing in jobs in renewable technologies. On the island we have some of the greatest resources in the whole of the UK in terms of sunshine, in terms of wind, in terms of tidal and other forms of power. And these need engineers and these need organisations and businesses, and we really need to capitalise on this part of our economy. In terms of education on the island, too many people have been seeing the island's education as failing, and we do need to sort that out, but really we also need to look at our successes. And we've spent a lot of time in the last 3 or 4 years improving our education. The thing which is letting us down is the lack of public accountability and the huge schools that we're insisting our children go to. The Green Party believe in smaller schools, and they believe in scrapping the constant testing that our students have to go through. But to improve education on the island, we need to recruit more staff and more teachers and move it forward. And one of the things which is affecting senior managers in schools recruiting more teachers is our problems with our transportation system. The ferries are being run by private companies, and they're not being run as a public service for the public, and we need to challenge that. The only party who is putting forward nationally an idea to renationalise the railways is the Green Party. This is a very popular policy. 68% of people, when asked by a YouGov poll, say they want to renationalise the railways. And what we think we should be doing with our ferries is looking at that as an option. No other party has been able to do this. We need to look at that as an option, regulations, subsidies, and try and sort out our ferries. In terms of a fixed link, the great surge in interest in the fixed link, I think, is due to the fact that people are tired of our ferries costing so much money and being really infrequent, and I think we need to concentrate and try to sort out our ferries in the short term. In terms of health on the island, there's been a lot of problems in St Mary's in the last couple of months, having to cancel appointments, and a lot of changes that are happening to our health system. I'm really concerned about this. We need to be looking at the health service as a public service, a public health service. This marketisation where private companies are tendering such £1.2 billion, such as Virgin Care are doing up in Staffordshire, really is a waste of money. We need to be spending our taxpayers' money on our health service and not for lawyers and for corporate organisations, and that's where the money goes. So the Green Party believe in an NHS reinstatement bill, and I signed up to this, which would put our public accountability back in the heart of the NHS. I'm also concerned about local services and cuts to local services. I think you find at the moment that the grant and the money that the local council on the Isle of Wight is getting just is not enough to be able to fund all the services. In the last 5 years we've seen cuts to bus services, public toilets, public libraries, cuts to jobs, cuts to countryside management, cuts to a whole host of things as we're trying to find £30 million deficit in the budget that we have. And I don't think anybody voted for this 5 years ago, and I certainly don't think anybody of any colour party on the Isle of Wight wants this. And this is down to the public government, the national government's belief in austerity, that we need to be cutting our expenditure on our services. And I believe that what we need to do is actually go and find more income. is an option that we can do. We need to look at corporate tax evasion, we need to look at big businesses that are not paying their way. There's all sorts of other areas we can get money that we can fund our libraries and our school crossing patrols and all those things we hold most dear. I've tried to look at all these parts of the environment as well, and absolutely on the Isle of Wight I believe we should not be fracking underneath our land. Not only is it environmentally a problem, but it's also a problem in terms of our reliance on fossil fuels. Across the country, we're building more and more cars, factories, we need more and more energy, and we need to find sources for this energy, absolutely. But digging under our ground to find more and more oil is just a distraction. What we need to be doing is going and finding more sources, a different source of energy, and that's what I believe we need to do. As a child, I grew up on a dairy farm, and my dad was a farmer for close to 20 years, but he had to give it up 15 years ago because there's just not enough money that can be paid their way in the dairy industry. Our supermarkets are bulk buying and farmers are going out of business. 10,000 farmers have gone out of business in the last 15 years. So I want to be looking at locally produced produce and making sure that our food producers are paid a fair wage. All of these different aspects, environment, the economy, transport, education and health, are crucial to the future of our country. And only the Green Party are actually taking a different stance to the other parties and saying that we need to be looking at what do we want from our government. And do we want our government to be fighting on behalf of big business, or do we want our government to be able to fund our public services which we hold most dear? Like I said, more and more people are joining the Green Party on the Isle of Wight, and you too can take a stand. The Green Surge has landed on the Isle of Wight, and that is why I'm saying vote Vix Lothian for the Green Party on the May the 7th. Thank you.
Hello, my name is David Goodall. I am Liberal Democrat candidate on the Isle of Wight for the parliamentary elections in May. I grew up on the Isle of Wight. I went to school in Cowes, primary school, middle school and high school. And I'm looking very much forward to standing in these elections. I've got a lot of experience at council level, but my main job has been an engineer and project manager, starting my working life at Pletties in Cowes. And I'm still working with the same firm, despite the fact that I'm being sold all the time to different companies. And I very much want to bring the experience that I've learnt as an engineer and a councillor, both on the Isle of Wight and on the mainland and the European mainland, back to the island to the benefit of the people here. Now, if we think back to 2010, the country was in a mess. Financially, we'd had an economic heart attack, as it's been referred to, and an economic heart attack had led to the government finances being in a very poor state, mainly because the government, in the previous government, was running a deficit budget, even in the boom times. So when the times got hard, things got even harder. They did leave some advice for David Laws when he got into the Treasury Office, which said the country was the cupboard was bare and there was no money left. And that was the advice we got from Labour, and we had a very difficult decision as a party to make. The mathematics had left it such that there were only two coalitions realistically possible. One was the Conservative Labour coalition, and the other one was the Conservative Lib Dem coalition. And as a party we decided to go into coalition, even though it might not be best for us as a party, but we considered it would be best for the country that we did that and provide a stable government. And I had a meeting earlier today with the Chief Exec at Whitelink, and he was very pleased with the way the coalition government had performed as a stable government and had given business a stable platform on which to build. There have been ups and downs in the coalition partnership, in particular tuition fees and the AV referendum at the very beginning, but there have been considerable gains, and the gains in particular that I'm pleased with as a Lib Dem are the rise in the income tax rate to take people, millions of people out of paying tax and millions more paying less tax, and that includes 44,000 people on the Isle of Wight. I'm also particularly pleased with the pupil premium. That's helped most disadvantaged pupils on the island and across the country, and that's meant an extra £13 million for children on the island. Now, as an apprentice at Pletties, I'm particularly pleased that the government have been able to increase the number of apprentices to nearly 2 million. And on the green side of things, I'm also very pleased that the amount of renewable energy has increased by a factor of 3, and that there's been a green investment bank that has helped all this come along. And the reason we're now having an election in May is because there was an agreement for having a fixed term parliament. So to take the politicking out of when to call the election, so the governing party can't pick it at the best time for their choosing. And that has led to a stable government because either party has known that they're in government for a time, and they've had to actually work out their differences and difficulties that they've had. And that has been to the benefit of the country, two parties working together, very much working in the centre of things. I feel that Liberal Democrats have been able to restrain some of the worst excesses, as we would see it, of the Conservative government. But going forward, there's also a very big job to do still in cutting the deficit and getting the country's finances back into a state where we can really start to improve public services, as well as decrease the debt once we've got the deficit under control. And the way to do that is by both raising taxes and cutting expenditure. The Conservative Party want to do all of that by cutting expenditure, and Labour aren't that convinced about getting rid of the deficit until the end of this next Parliament, and they only want to seem to do that by tax rises. You have to have a proper balance, and I think that's the unique selling point that we've got, that we would try and bring that in. Also on the pupil premium side, we want to make sure that's extended to 2-year-olds to provide proper care for the most disadvantaged 2-year-olds in the country. And we have to go forward in a manner whereby we try to cope with all these things. Now, as the Isle of Wight's MP, I would seek to try and push these policies at a national level. But I see the MP's role as having two functions. One, nationally, but on the Isle of Wight there's very much a big local job, because it is the largest constituency. And that involves working with local councils, both here but also on the mainland. If we want to improve things like the ferry crossings and the transport links, we have to do that in conjunction not just with the Isle of Wight Council, but also with the two councils that we link to. So Southampton and Portsmouth, we very much have to work with those. And there is a possibility with the city deals that are being put through in government to improve transport links if we can get a city deal, and that's very much I want to push. So I think there are a number of things that we can do which would be of benefit to the island, and I very much want to work with the people on the island to achieve that. Thank you very much for listening, and that's goodbye from me on Ventnor TV.
Hi, my name's Stuart Blackmore, and I'm the Labour Party parliamentary candidate who hopes to persuade you to vote for him at the next general election, which is fast coming upon us on May the 7th in a few weeks' time. I'm very pleased to be able to speak to you through the medium of Ventnor Television, particularly because I'm a resident of Ventnor and have been for close on 30 years or thereabouts, living here with my wife Margaret and my two children, Robert and Nicola. Robert and Nicola both came through the island education process before moving on in their lives. Robert joining the army for 7 years in the Princess of Wales Regiment before coming out after his 7 years and moving on, travelling the world. And Nicola After leaving school, went to Bournemouth University, where she matured in nursing and has since been working at various hospitals in the south, including Salisbury, Toddstock and St Mary's here on the island at Newport, Isle of Wight. So my background is very much in Ventnor, very much community-based, very much here on the island. Close to Ventnor also, I'm past chairman of the Ventnor British Legion, and I'm a vice president of Ventnor Rugby Club. I'm very pleased to be able to tell you. I used to play for Ventnor to not very well, not to a very good standard, but there again I thoroughly enjoyed my time at Ventnor Rugby Club. I am involved in local politics as an apolitical member of Ventnor Town Council, so I know firsthand, I have great experience of how things are affecting people like you, the cuts and the massive savings that are coming through from central government down through the county council to people at town and parish level. So I really do understand how these things affect local people, and we in Ventnor Council are taking steps to ensure that most of your public services are kept to at least the same standard, if not a better standard than you would have had going onwards. But I'm standing here on the island as a Labour Party candidate, and I'm asking people to try and make a historic decision to return a Labour Member of Parliament to Westminster, rather than have the Conservatives, UKIP, the Greens, or the various other parties and or organisations that are putting members forward as candidates at the next election. I really do feel very strongly that you need to have an organisation behind you, and I do have that organisation behind me in the Labour Party. We have some very talented people, both locally and at national level, who are advising me and helping me on those levels, and helping to inform me and allowing me to inform you, the voters, about our policies going forward. Labour has just embarked on a big national policy forum, for example, which is informing our manifesto, which is going to be released within the next 2 weeks on a national basis. Lots of people locally, lots of organisations, and both locally and nationally, have had a very good input into those talks, and we're using that to inform us going forward about the policies that we need to persuade you to adopt by voting for me going to Westminster. Things that mean an awful lot to people like you, like local transport services, local ferry services, the local small train service, bus services, which are very much coming onto the political agenda shortly with the announcement of new timetables and new fare structures here on the Isle of Wight. These things can only be addressed at a national level if you give the candidate your vote to be able to do that. Take it forward with the national organisations, which are not in the same position as I would be able to influence people at national level. The only other candidate of comparable stature would be Andrew Turner, and we all know that Andrew has had many years trying to be able to convince his Tory government to help the Isle of Wight. It hasn't worked, in my opinion, and I suppose that in your opinion, what I'm trying to say is being a member of the Labour Party gives you certain advantages over other candidates. It gives you the organisation behind you, it gives you the help, it gives you the influence to be able to take your policies forward. You ask yourself what would happen in the event that this is a very, very tight election, both here on the island and nationally. Who would have the influence at national level to represent your views better? Would it be the Green Party, the UKIP Party, or the Independent Party especially, who do not have the influence that people like me, if elected, would have? That's what islands have to ask themselves. There is no point absolutely in electing somebody who's going to have no influence on what's going to happen on a national level, because that in itself is what filters down to local level. And you have to have that influence to be able to fight very, very hard for the islanders, very, very hard for the services that we want to keep and want to promote here on the Isle of Wight. To do that, you have to make the choice between myself and the Tories, and I am asking you to vote for Stuart Blackmore, the Labour candidate, to take that forward.
Hello, I'm Ian Stevens, born and bred Islander, an independent, no politics, just place and people. I'm standing in the general election to be held on the 7th of May this year, and I'm doing so on a ticket that means that I'm not answerable to any political masters, any whip or any party political shenanigans. I think the island deserves better. I think the island deserves the best, and in this field of candidates that is out there, I know that I am the best. I have put forward, under my own auspices and my own financial backing, to stand in this election. What I would say is that it's about showing that there is a way forward for independence in the national stage. This is the time nationally when we can make a difference. I'm looking to make a difference to this island by working cohesively with the Isle of Wight Council. I'm looking forward to working alongside our educationalists to make sure that opportunities in education are forwarded in apprenticeship schemes and pre-apprenticeship schemes. Also looking at the university opportunities for our young, trying to make sure that we can actually have foundation courses on this island, allowing our young people to stay at home, not running up huge debts in university on the mainland, but actually working from home, foundation courses on the island through our further education colleges and looking at our local universities. That is where I want to be with education. That is where I want to be with aspiring young people who want employment, who want to move on. We have an ageing workforce in some of our large employers. We need to make sure that they are catered for in the future. So therefore we need to grow our own. We need to grow our own because these are job opportunities for the island. We also need to make sure that we hang on to the inward investment. The little bit of assisted area status which I moved forward on earlier, which has caught the imagination on the northern side of the island, unfortunately was not backed fully. We need all island assisted area status. We need to make sure that inward investment is for all the island and not just for the northern part of this island. We need to make sure that areas of deprivation are dealt with. We need to make sure that social care is given topmost priority for young and old. We need to make sure that central government does not renege on deals and say that they're putting £1 billion into the NHS at one end whilst taking £1.2 billion out of adult social care at the other end. That is not new money. That is old money that is being recircled and recycled, and unfortunately the people that pay are the elderly. We need to make sure that we're a caring nation and a caring island. I think we can do that. I'd like to be the spokesman for the Isle of Wight, the spokesman for the Isle of Wight community. I've already been the spokesman for the business community through the Chamber of Commerce, through the Federation for Small Businesses. I've acted as their voice. I want to act as your voice as well. That is why I believe in putting the island and its people first. Those people, this island, before politics. Thank you.
Hello and thank you for tuning into this broadcast. My name is Ian McKee and I am UKIP's parliamentary candidate for the Isle of Wight in this year's general election. I'm 46 years old, I'm married and we have a small son and have lived in Totland Bay since 2009. I grew up on a farm in North Yorkshire, the youngest of 5, and I went to university in Wales. In 1990 I moved to London and began my career, and for over a decade I worked with investment and pension funds helping maximise their portfolio. I then went back to university and took a master's degree in European politics. Basically, I studied the European Union for a year. And this led me into a field of work where I had to deal with European-led legislation every single day. And it was this work that drew me to the conclusion that continued membership of the European Union could never, ever be in the best interests of the United Kingdom. I'd long time been a member of the Conservative Party, but David Cameron's failure to deliver on his pledge for a cast iron guarantee of a referendum led me to leave the party and join UKIP. From my wife's side, I have strong family connections to the island. And since 2001, I've been a very regular visitor here. I was married in St Edmund's Church in Wootton in 2006, and the following year our son was christened there. During all this time, I saw the dismal performance of the MP. The schools suffered, job prospects declined, investments plummeted, St Mary's hit breaking point, and the roads remained among the worst in the country. Yet Andrew Turner flip-flopped his way to a nice little earner, a typical absentee landlord. The bookmakers have this election as a two-horse race between myself and Andrew Turner. The Isle of Wight County Press and Isle of Wight Radio organised hustings sold out in just over a day. And there are many people who would like to see myself and Andrew Turner in a leadership debate. Therefore, I challenge Andrew Turner to meet me on Sunday, April the 19th at 5 p.m. for a 2-hour one-to-one debate in front of up to 425 islanders to hear him defend his record and hear from both of us our visions for the next 5 years. The last 5 years have been very hard for the island, and the next 5 years, no matter who is in number 10 Downing Street, will be harder still. The role of an MP is a vital one. We need a strong and capable Member of Parliament who can represent the interests of the island at all times, who can be mentally and physically able of fighting our corner. He or she must defend our schools, our hospital, and the needs for our elderly population. We need an MP who is driven by compassion and the need for care. I'm the only candidate who can offer this strong voice for the island, and I urge all of you to vote on May the 7th. And I urge all of you to do what's right for the country and right for the island, and that is to vote UKIP and to vote Ian McKee on May the 7th. The island deserves better. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Andrew Turner. I was your MP until last week, and I'm hoping to be your MP again after the election. Will you vote for me? I hope so. On tax and jobs, we've cut the deficit by a third, ensuring a sound economy and providing more jobs on the island. Freezing fuel duty and cutting income tax leaves more money in your pocket. Lower business taxes have created more jobs. Capping welfare and changes to the benefit system will mean that in future nobody will be better off on benefits than in work. The island economy, with Vestas announcing the return of blade manufacturing and plans for the new composite centre, our economy is making good progress. The future for the island must be to attract more and well-paid jobs in high-tech industries. And the future, we have turned the corner from the difficult years of the recession. We must keep on the same track. The budget in March gave help for first-time home buyers, lower taxes for employees, and, after a lifetime of work, older people need to know that their pensions will keep pace with prices. They have those guarantees from the government. Our island. The NHS. Most decisions about island healthcare are now made locally. On the island we have caring doctors, GPs, nurses and other health professionals. When I suffered a stroke in 2006, I owed my recovery to so many people at St Mary's. I still have to prepare my speeches in advance, but I know how lucky I am. Education. Island schools are really making progress, but there is still much to do. As an ex-teacher and education specialist, I know how youngsters need a good start in life. University isn't for everyone, so I welcome the fact that we have more vocational courses and apprenticeships. Transport. The ferries, trains, buses and the council must work together to bring about more joined-up transport. I have persuaded the government to set up a transport infrastructure task force to be effective and responsive to the island's needs. But when we're looking at our economy, what are the key issues for the economy? First of all, Europe. Only people over the age of 57 have had a say on Europe. In 1975, I voted no. The common market then was very different to the EU of today. For example, there was no mention of every EU resident having the right to come to the United Kingdom. The Conservatives are the only party willing and able to deliver an in-out referendum on our future in Europe. Whatever your own views, it is vital that British people have a say. Immigration. Many of us are worried about too much immigration, and it isn't racist to say so. England is the second most crowded country in Europe. The government has started to deal with the issues, but there is still much to do. English votes. Although the Scottish referendum was against independence, it has created an even greater imbalance between the four countries of the UK. The Conservatives will give England a fair deal. I knock on doors all the year round, but during this election period, I know many islanders want to know about these key issues. Here are my thoughts on a few of them, but if you want more detail, please get in touch using the email contact. I'm Andrew Turner. I'm the next best person to be the MP for the island. I hope you'll back me.